Hey everyone, how's it going? And yeah, let's not beat around the bush, summer's almost wrapping up, so let's just jump into a quick recap of last issue of Superman for all seasons. Issue 1 of Loeb and Sale's take on Superman's early years are narrated by Clark's childhood friend, turned high school sweetheart, Lana Lang, who besides talking about the love she felt for the Big Blue Boy Scout, also discussed how he was at a point all people go through after high school, and wondering what to do with his life. But with the addition of developing superpowers, and after saving the townspeople from a devastating tornado, and a bit of a convincing chat by both a local pastor and Lana, Clark is convinced to go out into the world and help people. And after saving a kid from falling off a ledge, the world would be introduced to the last son of Krypton we all know and love. How does Superman spend his summer? Well, let's dive into Superman for All Seasons issue 2 and find out.
I'm here. Baron Von Void was trying to assimilate the Image universe. I didn't have the heart to tell him that they don't really have one. The deluded fool.
Well, there's the Savage Dragon universe.
Savage Dragon isn't a universe. It's an increasingly bizarre look at its creator's kinks. Actually, no, I should have let him go for it. At least we won't suffer anymore.
True. Anyway, quick intro for you to the audience. He's Lunar, he protects the white space, and he's joining me for this review.
It's Captain Lunar. I paid a lot of money for those business cards.
Anyway, let's get into issue 2, Summer. Warning spoilers. We open Superman flying through Metropolis.
And though no captions or word balloons say it, you can just feel the urge to shout, "Look, up in the sky!"
What is said, though, is Lois's thoughts, who is taking over the narration, talking about the impact that Superman has left on the city, after only being there for a few months.
And we see people haven't all hopped on the Superman train, since Jimmy really seems to be under the impression he's Mighty Man, not Superman. Jimmy, get some glasses. That's clearly Captain Marvel.
Which one?
The only one that matters. If it ain't magic, it ain't a Marvel.
Speaking of not being on the Superman train, we see Lex Luthor get some unpleasant news, and heads to where Superman has just captured a hijacked sub.
And one that had fired a nuclear missile at the city. Clearly they were expecting the Iron Giant, not Superman.
One of the criminals tries to hold Lois hostage. Another moment of Lois needing Superman to... Actually, she handles him pretty easily. Sure, Superman disarms him, but she ends up knocking him down.
And for those of you in the peanut gallery who may or may not think Lois is a Sam Raimi Mary Jane damsel, Lois routinely gets herself both in and out of dangerous situations all the time. Generally, Superman only intervenes when it's clear no regular person is walking out alive or not maimed.
And even then, he makes sure that no one dies. Like, I don't know, not slamming a guy into a concrete wall.
On this world, S doesn't stand for Snyder.
Lex, impressed, tries to offer Lois a ride back to the planet, but she says, pretty bluntly I must add, would prefer that Superman gave her a lift.
Lex, you gotta learn. The George Costanza do isn't sexy. Go Jason Statham, then talk to Lois.
Before leaving, Superman tells Lex that he knows his company helped design the guidance system for the sub's missiles, and suspects that he has something to do with the hijacking. Lex denies this, but before he can scream fake news, Superman and Lois are already off. Lois was impressed, as no one's ever talked to Luthor like that before Superman, with Superman saying that it was about time someone did.
While Lois tries to push down the intrusive thoughts of schemes to get him to marry her, she begins wondering just what kind of things someone like Superman would do when he's not being, well, Superman, comparing him to the male ideals of a Prince Charming. But her jaded mindset doesn't really let her buy the idea at face value. Can this not yet marriage be saved?
As she narrates, we see Clark head to his apartment, but begins to feel homesick. Makes a quick return to Smallville, where he catches up with his folks, his buddy Pete, but not Lana. Despite promising to come back to her, Lana left town right after Clark went to Metropolis.
This is payback for forgetting her in Superman Year 1. Remember, this is what happens when you let late-stage Frank Miller work on a comic. Beloved supporting cast members get ditched for mermaids.
Or turn into a weird Joker mutant like in The Dark Knight Strikes Again.
Frank Miller, destroyer of supporting casts and good taste.
Clark confesses to his mother that he feels out of place in Metropolis and thought coming home would help him feel better, but feels like the town has changed so much that it doesn't feel like home anymore. Martha, though, assures her son that he will find a way to make things work out.
It's scenes like this that really emphasize why Superman has a secret identity in the first place. It's not just to keep a secret or avoid prying eyes, it's because he's still, despite all his powers, a normal man who needs time to breathe and think and just unwind. Ask questions about his place in the world itself.
Shane Bendis couldn't understand that.
Daredevil, Superman, same thing apparently.
After that break, Superman gets back to work trying to help with a fire at a chemical plant.
But it's not Superman who gets there first, but Lex's newest vanity project, the Guardians of the City, who tackle the blaze. We all know he wanted to call them his Lex-Men.
Though Superman still gets involved as he enters the blazing building to find a woman unconscious. As she comes to, she thanks him, which I'm sure will totally not lead to anything creepy.
Yeah, just like that nice Dr. Quinzel over in Gotham.
Superman then proceeds to one-up the Guardians by creating a vortex with this amazing imagery, and chastising the Beetleborg rejects as they focused on the fire and not the civilians.
And while most of the comic has shown what makes Clark Kent great, here we see what makes Superman great.
The issue concludes with Lex visiting the woman Superman saved at the plant, a Miss Jenny Vaughn, and yikes. I don't know why, but I suspect that she has a statue made of gum.
Think she ever punches her neighbor for eavesdropping?
And that's issue 2. A bit more action-packed than the last issue, but still focused on more emotional elements of Superman, while also setting up all the characters we all know and love to hate.
Hey, that's no way to talk about Jimmy. Sure, he wasn't in this issue, but still.
And with that, we move on to characters, starting with, of course, the Big Blue himself. This issue really let us see both the duality of Superman and Clark Kent, as, like many before him, Clark plays a more timid figure, while Superman is being more heroic and bold, but also a bit more blunt, as he's willing to call people out like Lex and his Sex Luthor groupies. He's a Superman that takes no shits, but unlike Frank Miller's takes, he's not a dick. He's still a hero, all while he's still trying to figure himself out, like we all do when we leave home.
For those of you who may not know, if the costume wasn't a giveaway, I'm a die-hard and lifelong Superman fan, so this issue really showcases what you want to see from Superman. He's a guy who will do whatever he can to ensure no one dies, and he won't tolerate someone making that job harder than it already is. That being said, he's still as cordial and caring as can be with the people he rescues, showing that down-home charm Clark has no matter the environment.
Next we got our narrator, Lois Lane, and though we only see her interaction with Superman for the opening, to her, still unsure of Superman. Not exactly thinking he's up to something, but she, along with most people, don't understand why he would do what he does, though trust him to do the right thing. She's also not a damsel, as they remind us, yeah, her dad was in the military. She was an army brat. Of course she can kick ass. She's also well aware of everyone else like Lex, and seems to know what they're going to do. I will say though, as she does have elements of her modern takes, there's a wee bit of the golden age, as she's clearly into Superman even if she won't admit it.
Lois here is an absolute treat, despite her limited panel time. As mentioned earlier, a lot of people associate her with being a classic damsel in distress type, but people really do tend to forget that Lois has demonstrated she can kick ass. She's only ever really needed Superman's help when the situation becomes a case of no one really getting out unless he's there, which is beautifully shown here. Her dynamic with Superman and Clark respectively also showcase why we were more or less kept with the two-person love triangle for so long, as it is interesting to see her thoughts and how they vary between both Clark and Superman.
And finally, on our main characters to discuss this issue, the greatest criminal mind of all time, Lex. And here he's akin to a Silver Age incarnation, as he's an evil businessman who dabbles into super science, but also has elements of Lex from the Lois and Clark TV series when it comes to his desires to get with Lois. I mean, yes, he's not the only Lex trying to get with Lois, but this one is really determined to get with her. He's also just as vain as ever, given his Guardian's design. What does the L even stand for? Either way, Lex has a solid introduction.
Lex here is as slimy as he is balding, but hair or not, he still sets himself up as Superman's greatest enemy. Lex here is very much a control freak, showing up to the theft of his sub and trying to take control of things despite them already being taken care of by Superman. Lex isn't trying to take over the world yet, but we still see the seeds of what will come to pass.
As for supporting characters like Mom, Pa, Pete, and Lindquist, still do a great job making Smallville feel lived in a tight-knit community. Like Lindquist apparently taking care of Lana's home, it's empty, as after she left, her folks died apparently.
Pete also feels like the old town friend we all know, giving Clark a proper hometown welcome, and you can see the friendship is quite solid despite all the years of not seeing each other much.
Sales still did a great job, and again shows how great he was with watercolor. I mean, look at this image of Superman making the vortex. Also, as Lunar said, if you notice, Lex has less hair than he did in the last issue. We also get some nice callbacks to the last issue, where Clark is looking at the night sky, not unlike his father, showing the two are very much alike. I will say the helmets of the Guardians are a bit off, mostly with those Spider-Man-like eyes, but it's a bit of a nitpick, along with Clark's face looking a bit too small. On a whole, though, it's still damn good.
The entire comic is just gorgeous, one of Tim Sale's best, where the Long Halloween revels cold in a noir aesthetic, here Tim Sale goes as bright and warm as summer can be, fitting for the issue itself. One thing to note is how he draws Superman, Clark in Metropolis, and Clark in Smallville. Superman is as large and in charge as ever, but Clark in Metropolis looks almost pudgy, while Clark in Smallville clearly has the farm boy physique on full display. It's a really great use of showing just how different facets of Superman play in tandem with each other.
It's something that I wouldn't be shocked inspired Frank Quietly when he was drawing All-Star Superman, as he does a similar thing. So yeah, issue 2 is still tons of fun, especially if you're looking for something a bit more lighthearted that takes you back to Superman's Silver Age roots, and a nice way to set up an ongoing story going further with him in Metropolis.
This series continues to be a great read, perfect for both longtime fans of the character or newcomers who want to get a feeling for him or perhaps just broaden their understanding of Superman. All in all, this issue packs the same punch as the Metropolis Marvel himself.
Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates, and thanks Lunar for coming for this one.
The pleasure was all mine. Always glad to help a fellow defender of the space between panels. Sadly though, I have to return to my lunar fortress. It seems like Proctor Paradox is up to his old tricks again. Seriously, do not get a villain who has a black hole ray. Captain Lunar, away!
Anyway, next time, I'll probably do Last Halloween next. Later.